Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're breaking down one of the biggest balancing acts on the planet, how the world tries to grow and prosper without, well, costing us the Earth.
It's a massive question, right? It's one of those puzzles that keeps world leaders up at night. And the answer, or at least the attempted answer, revolves around this one powerful idea: sustainable development.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we've got to get on the same page about what sustainability even is. Then we'll check out the global playbook. From there, we'll dive into a real-world case study, Malaysia, and then zoom back out to see the big picture challenges that every country is facing.
Okay, first things first. Let's get right into it. What are we actually talking about when we say sustainable development? I mean, it's a phrase that gets thrown around all the time, but what's the real meaning behind it?
So the core idea, which was actually defined way back in 1987, really boils down to two things: balance and thinking ahead. You can think of it like this: we need to live our lives and build our world today in a way that doesn't mess things up for future generations. Simple concept, right? But oh boy, putting that into practice, that's where things get tricky.
And this is super important. Sustainability is not just about the environment. It's not just about saving the rainforests or the polar bears. Think of it like a three-legged stool. You've got economic growth, you've got social inclusion, making sure everyone gets a fair shake, and you've got environmental protection. You absolutely need all three. If you kick out one of those legs, the whole thing just topples over.
Okay, so that's the big idea. But how on earth do you make it happen? I mean, how do you get almost 200 different countries, each with their own priorities, to actually work together on this?
Well, the main playbook for this is the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals. You'll hear them called the SDGs. Back in 2015, these were adopted and they basically created a shared to-do list for the entire planet. It gives everyone a common language and a common set of targets, guiding everything from how rich countries give aid to how nations form partnerships.
And of course, a massive piece of this puzzle is climate diplomacy. Climate change isn't just seen as an environmental problem anymore. It's now treated as a full-blown global security issue. This is where you get those high-stakes, headline-grabbing negotiations like the Paris Agreement or the big annual COP summits. It's in those rooms where every country is in a constant tug-of-war, trying to balance what's best for them versus what's best for the world.
But here's the thing. These talks are anything but a level playing field. There's this huge, deep divide. You've got the global north, the developed nations that industrialized a long time ago, pumping out most of the emissions that got us here. And now, they have the money to go green. Then you've got the global south, developing nations that are getting hit the hardest by climate change, even though they've historically polluted the least. And they're saying, hey, we need to grow our economies too. This fundamental tension, this question of fairness, which people call climate justice, it's at the very heart of literally every single one of these global conversations.
Okay, so that's the big global picture. But to really get a grip on this, let's bring it down to earth and look at a case study. Let's zoom in on Malaysia and see how one country takes these giant global goals and actually bakes them into their own national strategy.
And you can see exactly how they're doing it. Malaysia has literally woven the SDGs right into the fabric of its core national plans. You can see it in their main economic plan, the 12th Malaysia Plan. You can see it in their vision for a fair society. And of course, you see it in their specific national policy on climate change. It's a textbook example of how you take a global blueprint and make it local.
So once a country makes this a domestic priority, it naturally starts to shape how they act on the world stage, right? A country's foreign policy is almost always a mirror of what it cares about at home.
So out on the world stage, this turns into what you might call eco-diplomacy. Malaysia isn't just showing up to the big UN climate talks. They're also taking the lead on regional problems, like tackling that awful transboundary haze from forest fires. And they're even using it for economic diplomacy. For example, promoting their own certified sustainable palm oil to the rest of the world, trying to balance their economy with environmental concerns.
And beyond that, Malaysia also plays this really interesting role as a middle power. It's actively working with its neighbors in ASEAN to push regional sustainability. Plus, it's involved in what's called South-South cooperation, which is basically developing nations helping other developing nations. Through programs like its Malaysian Technical Cooperation Program, it's sharing what it's learned and helping build capacity elsewhere. Okay, so we've seen how one country does it, but now let's pull the camera back out. Because honestly, the fundamental challenges that Malaysia's dealing with, they're pretty much the same ones that every single country is grappling with, whether you're a tiny island nation or a global superpower.
And this brings us right back to that core tension we talked about at the beginning. It's this constant push and pull. On one hand, every government on Earth feels the pressure to grow their economy. People need jobs, cities need infrastructure, everyone needs energy. But on the other hand, there's this urgent ticking clock to protect the environment, to save what we have left and slash emissions. It really is the great balancing act of our era.
And trying to pull out that balancing act creates these huge universal roadblocks. I mean, where's the money come from to pay for all this? It's incredibly expensive. How do you get your Treasury Department to work with your Environment Department? How do you deal with the floods and fires that are happening right now while also trying to plan for 30 years from now? It's a constant battle between what's urgent today and what's essential for tomorrow.
So if you take away just one thing from all this, let it be this. Sustainable development is not some niche green issue anymore. It's dead center. It has become a core pillar of modern diplomacy. The way countries choose to handle this balancing act is going to define their foreign policy, shape who their allies are, and honestly, it's going to determine what our world looks like in the coming decades.
And that leaves us with one final big question to chew on. As we look ahead, is this shared challenge of sustainability going to be the thing that finally brings us all together, the common cause that unites us? Or are the massive costs, the tough choices, and the conflicting interests going to make this the single greatest test that modern diplomacy has ever faced?